Action and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly. It is episode Waldek,
102. It's on top.
102. It's in here. That's true. Good point. I need the meeting as well. So this is PnP Weekly, where we talk about what has happened within the last week related on Microsoft, the M365 platform, and all of that stuff. And typically we also have a visitor here. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm from the OneDrive SharePoint engineering side, and with me as a co-host is Waldek. Before we go to our visitor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz. I am Cloud Developer Advocate for Microsoft 365. And today we have a guest from San Francisco, US, my fellow Cloud Advocate, Tomomi Imura. Hi, Tomomi.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here, though. Yeah. Should I just intro myself then?
Yeah, feel free.
Please do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right. Yes, like Waldek just said, I'm his co-worker, and I'm relatively new too, actually. I joined Microsoft like this summer. I thought I was a new one, but then Waldek joined, so I'm no longer new. I'm like veteran now. So I'm doing M365 developer advocacy, focusing on teams. And I live in San Francisco. Actually, I've been here for over like 16 years. It's been a long time, and I've been in the industry for longer. So I've witnessed all that up and down in the Silicon Valley. It's been interesting right here. And this time it's definitely interesting time. It's pretty quiet because all the techies have deserted the town. So it's no one here. Everybody has moved up.
Really? So people are moving to different areas then from San Francisco?
I think maybe going back to their home because, the price of living is quite expensive here. Although the price is actually going down now because everybody's gone, and landlords are having a hard time getting new tenants. So I heard the price is getting lower. It's because of COVID, and a lot of companies allow us to work from home. I mean, not allow us, we have to. And
right.
Continuously probably working remotely like Microsoft did. So everybody's asking me, it's like, hey, Tomomi, are you moving out? Because your company allows you to work from home permanently. I don't know, I'm still here. Yeah.
How's just out of curiosity, because I was following at some point that you had massive air quality issues in San Francisco.
Yeah,
how's that
wildfire.
now? That's all good now?
So my area, I live in the city of San Francisco, and we are the air quality index. I think it's a US index, so it might not be global, but it's being green, means it's good, breathable. But the fire itself is not fully contained yet. And this is actually the worst time we have to watch out because November, we do have a wildfire pretty much every year because air is super dry and anything can get ignited and spread. So people can do some dumb stuff like, I don't know if you've heard of one really stupid thing have caused one huge fire was a gender revealing party. It's explosives. So
I read about it as
hopefully no one does
Insane.
that.
Yeah,
it's bad. But at least breathable. Air's breathable right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like there wouldn't be enough of things in 2020 to worry about, right? So
that's how fireworks.
We have the presidential election coming up very soon.
That's true as well.
Yeah, that would be another one.
It's been crazy for sure.
Yeah. Now let's get back on the, let's say, technology and career. So Tomomi, you've been twice as long in Microsoft than Waldek, which is great. So like you said, you're a senior.
Exactly. Like you are twice as experienced, right?
Yes. But what did you do before joining the Microsoft? So what's your background?
So I would say I'm not really your typical developer. I mean, to be honest, I never really have used any Microsoft technology or even product, because I'm in San Francisco and the Bay Area is not very Microsoft land, right? We let's say using Mac and emailing on Gmail, even for business, chatting on Slack and stuff like that. So immediately before I joined Microsoft, I was actually working for Slack. Almost 3 years. Yeah. And before that, I was in multiple startups and some corporate, some startups, some mid-range, a lot of different companies. And in the typical things about being me in San Francisco is I'm such a job hopper. So I hop into job to job like every 2 years or so, sometimes only 7 months. Yeah. So, but I think it's pretty normal here. There's a plenty of job opportunities. Maybe not anymore because of the COVID, but it's been like that. So, and doing developer advocacy for almost 10 years. And before that, I was like front-end engineer. Yeah.
So is it for the web stack development then? So, So
I didn't say it. It's mostly web. So I have been involved in web standards too. So I was actually working with W3C for a while to set the standards for mobile.
Cool.
Well, it's actually a funny story because that time I worked in Nokia. So I think, you're familiar with the Finland company. So Fortunately, I never been there in the winter, but
you don't want to be in Finland in winter.
Working for Windows Phone. So
I have to say a funny story related on that. I still remember I was doing a long multi-month project with one of the global companies in Finland when I was still a consultant, and there was 2 Italian consultants who started working in Finland, I think in mid-October, and I think it was like January when they were like, when does the sun come up? This is crazy.
It doesn't.
I heard all the stories. Oh my gosh. Yes. I heard all the artificial lights in office
actually, but then they said that one of them or both of them actually stayed for the summertime, and then they said, okay, now I get it. So now I absolutely get why Finland is an awesome place to live in the summertime, because it's the 6 months of really beautiful. So
like
anyway,
you don't have night, right? Like half year long. It's like 24/7 party.
It's and now it's dark all the time, but hey, can do. So let's not go back on the time of Nokia, but
my cat is shaking my desk. Sorry.
No worries. Priorities, family always.
And cats.
He needs attention. Yeah.
Now, considering that you're from the Valley area, and obviously we want, as a Microsoft, we want to target those kind of developers as well, and we're moving away from this super Microsoft-oriented world to an open source and communities and web stack development and open standards. So, what actually made you? Or is it exactly for that reason? Why did you decide to move to Microsoft? So what's the
I want to ask what the same.
Sorry, Waldek.
No, I'm curious.
Why on earth?
Why Microsoft? I mean,
it's all about people, to be honest. So of course, I've been in developer advocacy for a long time. So I do know a lot of people from Microsoft already, and I was talking to some people, and they actually have contacted me for the opportunity. So why not? I mean, my priority is always working with great people. It's not like when I'm leaving a company, I'm leaving a company or product or whatsoever. It's more like a people, Well, it's not like I'm saying I'm leaving for the people who I don't like, but it's more like, joining a company with great people. Because I really think, especially for our job, like advocacy job, it's all about people, right? We say it's developer advocate, but the developers not about us. It's more like developers out there in a community. So it's all about we invest on people. So of course I always like to work with great people, and I knew Microsoft is a lot of great people.
It has really changed in the I've been too long in Microsoft already, but the time has really changed in the past. When I started, it was completely different company, because they would not allow these kind of phones to be used, which was super weird.
Actually, I knew the story.
Yes.
Your friends told me.
Yeah, that's true. But it's actually great to see that we're transitioned away from that, and now we're embracing then the open source and openness, and then trying to be as transparent. But how any kind of your first feelings moving to Microsoft? Anything what you've been super surprised, or anything was like, oh, I didn't know that they do that.
It is difficult to say though, because I joined during the pandemic, so I never really met anybody in person yet. I'm always working from home right here while my silly cats are bothering me. So it's really hard to feel, because I've been always working from office. Always office, always with people. And now I'm home and each, meeting its own teams. I mean, it's still great. So that it's it's really difficult to say. But the thing is, like, again, technology stacks, because I'm completely from a different world, almost like a bizarro world for Microsoft developers, right? I use Mac, and I even demanded for Mac when I joined. It's like, Mac, give me Mac when I...
I mean, the same.
I don't think there's any problems with that anymore, right? So you can easily get a Mac.
They got me Mac, because I didn't want to spend too much time for setup and stuff, and that's going to delay my start. So I just wanted to work on something I'm familiar with and that kind of stuff. But still, to be honest, I never really put my code on Azure because I was always using competing products. And I think beside the time at Nokia when I was working for Windows Phone, other things I'm familiar with only like VS Code and GitHub. So then, when I just joined, I was like in shock, because first of all, I didn't even know what M365 really meant. And then I have to learn that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know any of those. So the entire technology stack is something that I'm not familiar with. So I feel like this is really not just the new job or new role. It's like new everything. Yeah. It's tough. It's a huge challenge for me, to be honest. But at the same time, I guess I can leverage for not knowing anything about it. It's actually a strength. Because that's how, we begin this onboarding developer project. So we just reworked on Teams documentation. And we improved the whole, develop onboarding experience, especially for new developers. Like me,
exactly.
So,
exactly. That's actually a really good point, because you're then the awesome candidate of testing through the things and then realizing that, okay, we're missing gaps here and here. So that's actually really, really good.
Yeah, and also, so all the things like if you are doing the same thing like over and over again, like you no longer see the holes and the things that are assumed of you to know. Which on the other hand, like if you are new, well, you don't know. Like there's this example, like in docs we often say get a token. Get it from what? It's like 20 steps. Because you need to have app, you need to have this in Azure, that, and just like this one line, get a token, like from where? Where do I like
I don't
phone?
think
No,
still
it's not
new.
here. Not here.
I'm gonna bug
you
when I need to.
Exactly. So,
because I don't have any of the muscle memory, right?
Exactly.
So I have no idea about those 20 steps. So as a new developer, I had to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
and
I found it was quite tough.
Then we realized like how often these new devs are stuck, and maybe at times they will say like, I am stuck, I'm hitting the wall, I will leave it because like it's too hard, right?
Yeah, well, no, we can't help them to leave, right?
Exactly.
We have to just somehow hold them. And that was tough, because I really find out that development, like especially Teams development, has such a steep learning curve. And I gotta do something to just maybe, I wouldn't say flatten the curve, but it's still, I think it is hard. But I try to make the experience easier with documentation and the tutorials too. So it's been tough.
Absolutely.
And I think like with everything else, because it's so much, right? I mean, if you try to take it all at once and say, okay, develop things for Teams. Well, there are tabs, there are bots, messaging extension, there are web. We're like, no. Let's just try to do this one thing. And even within bots, maybe you don't want to do auth immediately. Maybe you will start with something simple. And then like when you grasp that, then only you add this auth and build it out, as opposed to try to squeeze everything. Then it's like this big pile of like, how do I even see the top of that, right?
Sure. Even before that, actually, I didn't even know there are different features like bots, tabs, and messaging extension and all those. So that was a problem. So to even get to the point that, finding out what to do, It's a long, like, I had to just read everything and click on not this, and I started Googling something else for third party. It's, no, this is not the right path. Then when I was Googling, it's like, oh, shoot, the SEO might not be great. That's another issue, right? So finding a lot of issues. So I think one of the first things we're talking with the documentations and product team was like just making sure, like, just presenting the feature, like what kind of, not just API and stuff, just more like a feature that you can create in a first page with like a more graphical way, right? Some screenshots, graphics and diagram and all those. So at least, that could be a good starting point. Yeah. But a funny thing is, I didn't want to be a bad person telling everybody, especially I just joined the company. No one knows me. No one has seen me. I'm not in Seattle. I'm like, hi, I'm Tomomi. I'm a new person and I hate your dog. And you can't do that.
And this is what's wrong with your dogs.
Like, what? I did something cunning. Bringing a third party, like somebody outside of the company, like actual developers, then have them to rant. And we all listen to their rant.
I'm okay with that, but they're saying under the bus, right?
Oh, yeah, it's complaining about this. But seriously, actually, not just that worked. It was I really appreciate everybody who have joined us, telling us about their struggles and all the stories. Yeah. And that actually helped a lot to improve, the current docs and gave me ideas to write tutorials and stuff too.
Yeah. And that's the number one thing which we're always asking from the community is that it's fine to rant and it's fine to complain, but please make sure that Microsoft hears them so that we actually get the feedback. So don't go and rant in a corner with somebody else because that's not useful. Let's try to work together and make things better. Because that's everything what we do in Microsoft is anyway targeted for the developers and end users to take advantage. So if something is wrong, we need to know about it so that we can fix it. So,
exactly.
Waldek, you look like you're about to ask something.
No, that makes sense. Yes, that is what we do. I mean, well, so maybe one more thing to add to that. Like when you complain is fine as long as you do it in constructive ways. Like saying like this sucks because it sucks. Well, that doesn't help anybody. But you say like this sucks because I am stuck here. Here you say about getting token, but how do I do it?
All the reasons and steps you have.
Yeah.
So and like I say, in the community calls, also super important piece is if somebody is providing, if there's good things, it's okay to provide positive feedback as well, because those things do matter as well. So it's not just about ranting, but then when you find that something is cool, how about sending a message and saying that and providing positive feedback, because then that really resonates well for those people who've been spending their time on fixing things. So, but hey, it's a journey and one step at a time. Good. And now, Tomomi, considering you've been in the Slack in the past, and obviously you can't talk about too much on too many things, but how would you kind of characterize the differences between Slack and, for example, the Microsoft Teams or let's say Microsoft?
Ooh, so they are really quite different products. And of course, as a consumer product perspective, when we're talking about just a product, everybody think about they are competing products, right? So to be honest, when I joined Microsoft, it was a huge shock to my friends and everybody's asking me, it's like, oh my gosh, how dare you type of, reaction. But that's a long story. Anyways, but for me, for like cloud advocacy person, for like developer perspective, those two are not competing at all, because many times your employer decide which to use, so it's not developer's choice first of all, and the second of all, of course, it's kind of like iOS and Android. So many times app developers wants to develop for both platform, right? Yeah, but the same issue, those two, when you're developing for iOS and Android, those experiences are quite different. And you don't want to, of course, people try to, but you don't want to just build one app and expect work for both nicely with same level of user experience. That just usually unless it's a super simple app, it just doesn't work that way. You have to still write from scratch. then of course it sounds like such a pain, working on 2 or 3 different platforms, but still that's really the way it is. And I always have to tell people that those 2 products are quite different, comes with totally different features and, technology stacks and everything. So just don't think or don't even try to compare,
Right.
If you try to compare, I tried to even create a comparison chart and I'm like, maybe not the good idea. It's like a product or feature to feature comparison, but they don't align really, because Slack is just that one product. It doesn't even come with APIs for, like, let's say, meeting, because they rely on, well, actually, Slack does have meeting, but usually people rely on the third party, like Zoom. Yeah. So if you want to create something for video type of a meeting, you have to use the Zoom APIs and things like that. But still, API is the same, like one API versus Teams has so many different, like Teams, Tabs has different API, or more like technology stack like SDK, Teams SDK. Bot has a bot framework, which is even larger product. So it's not only for Teams, but you can create all kind of chat bots and stuff with. But that kind of, relationships and the graph, of course, there's so many different technologies and bits and pieces, and that might be a huge confusion for people who are new to Teams. But like, again, it's like apple and oranges or whatever. It's just hard to compare. Yeah. I can go on and on and on, but it's 2 different, products. Yeah, maybe competing, but not really for us. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is indeed an interesting point that one, especially I think that we don't often spend time thinking about, like that, as you say, like for devs, like one, oftentimes somebody else says company X uses this or that. It's not devs that say, hey, we're going to use this. And then 2, if you are ISV and you build a product like, I don't know, let's call Adobe or something, you want to have your app everywhere because you want to reach as many people as you can, as opposed to, no, we will only build for this or that, right? So like, as you said, exactly, like from our point of view, we cater, like it's not a compete. Like we cater just like they're interested in just as much in our stuff as they are interested in anything else, and there's no way around it.
That's actually a good perspective. Absolutely, that's a good point. And then eventually, it's coming back on what Tomomi already said, related on the documentation as an example. It's not about the APIs. It's all about explaining the scenarios and what you can do within the product. So, and I think it was Russia's who's pretty high on the food chain, who said that it's all about educating customers and partners on the art of possible. So that people understand that, okay, I can actually include my LOB application, line of business application. I can integrate the relevant pieces directly in Microsoft Teams, the relevant pieces, not all of it necessarily, and I can surface some of the KPIs and whatever values there, and then and then I can actually ask my developers to do that, or a system integrator to do that, or whatever is the use case. So it's really around making sure that those people who have the authority of assigning the developers to work on things, to educate them on the art of possible.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah. So let's see. We are doing a lot of stuff actually there for Microsoft Teams and for the M365 area, which will be live later this year, but we can't talk about all of that stuff yet. So.
Just yet. Coming soon. Working on it. Should not take long.
Working on it. Yes, absolutely. Now, what else do we want to talk about?
The articles.
Articles. Should we jump to the articles?
Yes.
Let's do the articles.
A bunch of articles.
And then we'll come back on a closer in here. So let me share my screen. And let's talk about the articles and samples and all of that stuff as well. And I just realized that I'm missing one thing here. That is fine. I will show it when we are on the same page. Anyway, from the Teams blog, introducing Soho Notebook for Microsoft Teams. So bringing your thoughts and teams together, basically a partner showcase on how things can work. And I think these are super valuable as well for other partners to understand what's possible and what can be actually done within the Teams platform as an example. So
here we see a personal tab, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Seems to be. They're actually hiding the left menu, which is slightly weird that it's cut away, but it seems to be a personal tab, yeah. And then you can actually access the information there. So embedding that.
Cool.
And this one is for Microsoft partners with Salesforce to deliver Microsoft Teams integration for sales and service, which is actually pretty interesting. I haven't really analyzed and had a super detailed look on this one, but it's really around integrations on the Salesforce.
Orders, that makes sense, yeah.
On the bots and on the tabs and all of that stuff. This actually makes a lot of sense. So having a true integration with Salesforce leads and all of that stuff directly within the product. So makes a lot of sense. Good example, by the way, again, on what the art of possible. Then we had the Intro Zone, which is one of the podcast series from Mark Cashman, Rightpoint with Customer. We are in a partner week, apparently, because every single news is around partners. But this is really around the Rightpoint, and then having a discussion on what they build and how they build that, and a Power Platform, and using that in the Microsoft 365 suite. So good stories related on what's possible, again, on educating people. Now, this one is really interesting around the Microsoft Teams APIs. So importing third-party platform messages to Microsoft Teams is now available in beta. And I think we had an interesting discussion related on this one before we started recording. But this is something what Tomomi, you said that people are asking about this one, right?
Yeah, a lot of people. Well, so the thing is, a lot of companies has been migrating from one platform to Teams, right?
Yes.
And of course, people don't want to have the old conversation left in all the platforms, so want it all migrate everything. So that's great that we finally have that in beta.
Absolutely. And there's the super critical thing, which I was thinking, is that you can actually create messages with a back-in-time timestamp.
Team channel messages, yeah, absolutely.
So you can actually then truly fulfill for the time when it actually was happening in the external system. So that's really, really cool. So that is in beta. Now, this one is not around Microsoft 365 explicitly, but the technology is. So it's actually Microsoft Forms is now available for personal use, and that's actually pretty cool. So I think it's completely free, and you can actually use that within your Microsoft account. Which is really, really cool, as part of the same setup as the Outlook, the Outlook and OneDrive and all of that stuff. So And this one, Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast, came live today as well. And this is really around the Azure Communication Services, which we announced in Ignite. So that's a few weeks back, really concentrating on that one. So Paul had a discussion with Sean Henry on that one. And then if you're wondering what is a Azure Communication Services, it's actually something really, 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 really cool, which says pretty much over there, which is basically it's the platform which Microsoft Teams is using for all of the communication channels, and that's really cool.
So in other words, like Teams without Teams client. Imagine that you can embed a video call in your own app.
Yeah.
Or other things like chat or text or whatever.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So, and this one is Tomomi from you. You can actually.
Yeah, that looks familiar.
What is this about?
So this is a second of this beginner series of the Teams development tutorial. Like I was saying earlier, as a person, like new developer to Microsoft and of course Teams and everything. So, obviously, we wanted to target a lot of people just like me, the new developers, or people who have been, developing on other platform like Teams and Zoom and whatever. There are a lot of people who are not familiar with any of the Microsoft technology ecosystem. So I'm definitely targeting those kind of people to tell them like easiest possible way to show how to create. I think this tutorial is particularly for conversational bot, and the previous one was tabs. So I'm planning to write another one for, I believe it's a messaging extensions or something.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Makes perfect sense. And for those who are not aware, please sign up for the Microsoft 365 Developer Program. You will get a free subscription.
Yeah.
And it will be automatically renewed as long as you use it for developer usage. So we have a telemetry in place, which is basically detecting that, you're using it for developer usage. It's going to renew automatically. It's really cool. Now, and this one, we wanted to actually talk about this one. This is where actually I forgot about adding a one tab, which is AKMS Teams samples. And that's basically a Microsoft Teams development samples, plenty of samples already available, and you can actually look into these samples from multiple different angles. So you can have a look on the client language perspective, or you can have a bot framework if it's bot related, or server language if it has a backend as well. So, but you, Tomomi, had here HTTP status cat.
Oh yeah, that's something I made that too. Yeah, so that's really basically a HTTP status code lookup. So you can use either this message composing window, or what is the real name for this? So you can look it up from the two different places on the Teams client. And of course, each, because it's HTTP status cat, so each status comes with cat picture. And this was something I originally created, like HTTP status cats, I originally created by myself like 9 years ago. And that time it really gave me 15 minutes of fame on all internet. So, so this time I finally created one for Teams. Now this is actually available for Slack and Discord as well. I didn't make one for Discord. My former colleague from Slack have created one for Discord.
Cool. And pretty recently actually had a video demo on this one as well. So this one was last week from the Microsoft Teams monthly community call, where you actually demoed the solution and walked that through. So
yeah, really cool stuff. I gave in 8 o'clock in the morning, so my brain was like
4:04. Tomomi not found.
Yes. Cool. Let's go through some other articles. So Jarpas Horst from Valo Intranet had a Microsoft Graph API to create Teams. It's now GA and supports new permission level. So basically, there's a new set of permissions and the more specific permission levels available as well, which is really cool. So you can actually you don't have to have a massive level of permission granted, only team create to be able to make things happen. Also from an application perspective, which is really, really cool. This one was from Alex Terentiev from SharePoint Outlook and SharePoint events, time zones, and display dates. So it's really
the hardest topic ever. Seriously, it's not only time zones, display dates. Like you just pack all of these, the hardest things ever into one.
Especially now, some regions have the standard time, daylight saving. What do you call it? Summertime?
Winter time now.
Well, because we say daylight saving time, so and we're still in daylight saving now here. And the summertime started in southern hemisphere, so it's so confusing.
It's like an interesting thing because like first like 2 weeks back it was in Australia. I think Brisbane or Melbourne moved. Brisbane did not. Now it's us. Then in a few weeks' time it will be you in the US.
Yeah,
it's like the whole world is just like in this state of like we're moving.
Crazy.
Luckily Outlook works nowadays, so that's okay. So
I've seen a Google Calendar have the broken sometimes too. I think it's the global issue for anybody in any companies. Yeah.
Good. That's a good summary on how things work, how to look at things. And this is from Louise Fries. So Microsoft 365 Developer Bootcamp happened last week, and this is a summary from her related on participating there and having a participating on the training. And she's always telling that she's not a developer. She was a visitor in our show as well, but she's getting to be a developer. I think it's unfair to say that she was not
more developer than she is willing to admit. I think.
I agree.
Yeah,
so she joined this bootcamp from Haiathlon.
She went through the whole thing like a champ. She had everything ready. Like I think she was even one of the first folks who went through all of it. Like, and you don't call yourself that. Like she's even coding there with the nails, the foils on her hair. Like
amazing.
Unbelievable.
It's just amazing.
She is.
Yeah. Excellent stuff, and a really great summary related on the experience and how to get started. And this is referencing also the tutorials and samples and all of that stuff. So really great blog post. Now, Tomomi, sorry, this is not Tomomi, this is Rabia. I'm looking at that I'm dev too, so that it's Tomomi.
I know.
And
with this raccoon too.
Exactly. Hosting my first ever developer bootcamp, so related on the Louise's message. This is actually Rabia who hosted that, and then explaining her experience related on that and how do we what was built and how the things were set up. So really cool as well. So there she is again.
Yes.
Yes. So, and really good stories on learnings and what works and what doesn't, and what are the assets on these things. Here we have from Chandani, SPFX cascading dropdown in property pane. So basically how to build a cascading dropdown in the property pane of SPFX when you're configuring a web part or a tab of Microsoft Teams, because any single web part actually works as Microsoft Teams tab. So how to implement that and how to do a cascading thing and experience over there. So good summary blog post from her on that. Then we have 4 different videos. So this one is from Giuliano De Luca, Microsoft Teams, how to create your personal space or me experience in Microsoft Teams. Waldek, I think you're pretty familiar with this setup.
Yeah, so I think 2 weeks back or so, we launched a new article in Docs about the idea of building a me experience in Teams, right? Like, as we know, Teams is all about collaboration and us as a team, but then why not include this me experience that you can use to easily get overview of your upcoming meetings, recent files, and so forth and so on. Like so in other words, to have everything in single place, as opposed to having your team collaboration things in Teams, but then for the personal stuff, like you would need to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a video basically explaining the concept. And Juliana also includes a link to a repo in which he has a manifest of a working app. So he takes it to the next step.
Yeah. So and really cool setup. So basically, he's combining also the SharePoint Online pages, which then have dynamic web parts from SharePoint Starter Kit, and then we're surfacing that as an individual experience inside of the Microsoft Teams. So pretty complex setup, but absolutely quite simple way in the end actually making things happen, because this doesn't require necessarily any code. All of these samples and
the code we've already built, right? So the code is there.
Yes, that's true. That is true. Yes, that is true. Cool. And this one is from our Italian friend Paolo, who's releasing his weekly videos, and this is really around the PnP Core SDK, so the Microsoft Graph First library, which is always hitting the graph and then fallbacking on the non-graph APIs only if the API is not available in Microsoft Graph. So pretty cool setup as well, bridging the gap between the classic development style and then the Microsoft Graph. This one is from Marcus Müller, also from the same Teams call where Tomomi were showing the sample or demo, but this is around building a Microsoft Teams messaging extension with authentication and access to Microsoft Graph. So nice 10-minute demo on how that works, and the sample is available in the same GitHub repo, by the way. And because we absolutely want to have a centralized location where people can find Microsoft Teams samples, so that we want to make it that super easy for people to find them. Well, it doesn't mean that they all have to be in one repo, but still surfaced from one location.
Yeah.
And then this one, really cool setup. Was also watching this live. So Microsoft Teams apps for meeting from Righteous, who's I think he's actually the PM of this feature, from Microsoft Teams side, and it's really around building those experiences. So pre-meeting and during meeting and post-meeting experiences related on showing functionalities like on the site tab or doing a dialogues and pop-ups during the meeting. So really kind of making the meeting experience to a new level. So you can actually ask input and surveys and all of that stuff. And then the last one was from Christoph, a temporary message on top of your SharePoint page. Not necessarily the recommended way of doing things, because he's actually doing a CSS hack here, but kind of a really simple way of adding something on the page. So if you want to have a Halloween themed pages, you can really easily do that. Cool. But in general, you should not have a dependency on CSS hacks or DOM structure. So that's not a good thing in SharePoint.
Cool. Why?
Why? Because we might change the DOM structure. So basically, that's a good point. And we had 2 weeks ago, we had a change on the modern pages DOM structure in the SharePoint, and that caused some of the headache for some of the SharePoint ISVs and partners because they had a dependency on the DOM HTML DOM structure because they thought that Microsoft will not change that. Now, nobody from engineering, or everybody in engineering was thinking that everybody knows that you should not have a dependency on the DOM structure, but
turns out people don't. Yeah, rinse and repeat.
So, rinse and repeat. But you should not do that. So just a reminder on that. But I think that's all the articles this time. So let's get in here. We still have a few minutes time. So what's happening this week? It's Monday. Anything cool? Anything cool? Yeah, happening this week. What are you planning to do this week? Anything what we're going to talk about?
Oh, you know what? Tomorrow is my birthday. I just realized.
Congratulations. There we go.
Candles.
Oh my gosh, it's today, 26th. Cake, yeah. I put the Halloween header there too.
Yeah, go, yes.
In Teams, right? No.
Yeah, Halloween this week, yeah? Oh, wow, it's end of October already. Time flies.
It is. So you're planning to do blocking, obviously, more stuff, material, anything special, interesting? Okay. What about you, Waldek? Anything interesting this week?
Lots. Well, I am a little all over the place. I'm trying to see. Thank you. So organized, actually, so organized in chaos. So for one thing, I'm looking into the ability for us to be able to update the starter kit to use the Microsoft Graph Toolkit where applicable, because like we've built it way back when, and back then Toolkit wasn't there, so we built everything ourselves, which means like we added heaps of code that we can avoid now.
Get rid of, absolutely.
So I think with that, it might be a great case for us to show. Maybe even include migration path, like we've built that code ourselves, like you would in real life by yourself. And now, like what are the different steps if you want to move that to the toolkit, right? So that is one. Two, I also realized that we have tons of samples built in SPFX of web parts and extensions that again use Graph but don't use toolkit. So is there maybe a way for us to upgrade some of them and show like, hey, if you want to build that kind of web part or extension, here's how you can do it.
Or a Microsoft Teams tab. So.
You would expose it eventually in Teams tab. Yes, exactly. Well, so maybe there are even samples that are built as web parts but are not exposed in Teams.
Yeah, that's
so there would be another thing for us to look at, like how can you build it once and expose it both in SharePoint on Pages as well as in Teams.
Yep.
I'm just doing the latest fixes to get published a new getting started tutorial with Microsoft Graph Toolkit and React. So there's like almost done, like one or two things needs to be fixed and then it's live. And again, like the one thing that needs to be fixed is what? Auth.
Yeah. That's always the hard thing. Every single time.
So it's there, and the way we want to go about it is that like the auth part, it's exactly the same whether you build an app in React, in Angular, or in something else. So the way we want to do it is that we want to extract that part and have it as a reusable block that we can just stab into every walkthrough, because otherwise what? You have a walkthrough, there's the link. So you have to open this tab and do something in there and then go back. Like this experience is really poor. So instead we're going to have it embedded in the walkthrough, just like one article, but then not having to maintain the same bits and piece like 3 times or 4 times.
Yeah.
Anything else? I mean, other than that, we keep working on CLI for M365. We have heaps of new PRs that we need to go through.
New contributors, which is cool.
Exactly. So that is also there. Anything else? That would be probably it. I think that by itself already, that's like a lot for a week.
That's a lot of stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm focusing this week on finalizing the plans and designs for our upcoming M365 scoped sample gallery, which is really cool. And then we're working on an extensibility lookbook, which is actually pretty cool as well.
I have a thing to do in that too, right?
I think you do. I think you might. Anyway, but that's progressing. We're trying to get first versions out relatively actually fast. So really showcasing what you can do in the M365 from a extensibility perspective. Again, really focusing on that art of possible with fancy pictures, like Tomomi was saying, that we need to explain what's possible rather than just the API and technology.
The one thing we didn't talk about are doodles, Tomomi.
Oh gosh, yeah. So
you doodle.
Yes. Yeah, I do, and especially technology doodle, I would say.
The art of
one of my expertise is really converting like really hard to explain technology into easy to digest doodle. So I'm actually working on a bunch of doodles not for our own team, because I participate in a bunch of other V team project. So I'm actually working on this Web Dev 101. So this is another beginner's tutorial and walkthrough like workshop for especially for like teachers who wants to teach students, but like could be anybody. So as like what is programming languages, or what is JavaScript, and then what is variables, or how to use GitHub and things like that. So that's all of describing in my doodle. So I've been working on that along with my own main project too.
There you go. I mean, I'd love to see one for like, how would you picture journey? Like, where do you start with M365 dev, and what are different routes you can take, and what are different things? Like, doodle that.
Yeah, so I want to do that, but I have to understand everything first to be able to, right? So I'm still learning. Like again, I've said 360. What did I say? Right number? I almost 3. Anyways, 300, 600. It doesn't matter, and whatever. And it has a massive amount of myriads of products and technology, and I have to understand it first. So. Again, I'm still learning, so I'm gonna bug you a lot, both of you.
Yeah, that's all good. Now that's actually good. Before we close, that's one thing what I want to throw you both, because you're cloud advocates. I don't need to answer on this, but so putting on sorry. Yes, no. But I'm thinking around the Tomomi, you were saying really well that M365 is one of it's a massive platform, and we're having this challenge of explaining the opportunities of that for the partners. How would you define what is the opportunity on and why partners should be interested on Microsoft 365? What is you can absolutely have a open discussion on this, but what would be your way of a kind of clarifying let's say a partner who's not aware of the opportunity? Why would they need to be interested?
You gave me the hard questions in the end.
All right, so with that, let me take one. I will give you a moment to think, like buying you time.
I think it's just great to have all the bits and pieces connected all together, and that's like related to the earlier questions about difference between two platforms like Teams and Slack. I think it's a massive, biggest difference I didn't mention was probably that, Teams can connect with all other products out there in one place without, letting anyone leave the platform. So that's really the one huge strength, and that a lot of new developers like myself are aware of. And the more you look at and the more you find, So that can be super confusing. It's so many things to learn, overwhelming like I am. But at the same time, you can leverage so many different areas within the product, not about just the user, but other products, calendars, and notes, and everything. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't have much to add to that. I mean, are you covered? It's already. I mean, few things you could add to that are more like if you would think about market side, right? So M365 is big. There are 250 million users who work with that every day. So if you are ISV or you build an app, that's a massive market you can reach, right? So that is one. Two, Microsoft has resources that help you land these apps, right? So there are whole teams that are all about helping you to understand, go to market, giving you resources, helping you from the business side, tech side, whatever you actually need, right? So, and there are whole teams for partners to use, to benefit. Is there anything else? Another thing is, which is an interesting thing, and I think we didn't talk about that in the past, if you build an app, that app needs to live somewhere. what you can do is like, sure, you can host it wherever you like. But the benefit you get if you would put it on Azure is that it's the same Microsoft cloud. So there'll be less cost because your app will go like within the data source connections. So there'll be less cost for you to run the app because the data will not go out the data source, go back, right?
Yeah.
I'm bad. Sorry, I lost the connection.
Yeah, no worries.
No worries.
We talked about Azure and money. Right? So and there's that. And two, like if there is enterprise who uses 365, like oftentimes they have requirements for compliance, data sovereignty, and so forth and so on. If your app lives in Azure, by default, you get the same benefits for your app as customers get for 365. So it's way easier for you as a vendor to answer any kind of form that they might have as a requirement for your app than if you would host it like under your desk.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's obviously, if it's an Azure, it's a bit of tools and a different kind of set of tools, which you still need to implement. But then M365 is really around the actually services which you're combining, not just tools.
Data too.
And the data which you're combining. So it's almost like an abstraction layer on top of, well, it is an abstraction layer on top of Azure. So, and then it's all about combining things and then still taking advantage of Azure. So
and it's in the end to also like graph, right? It's just like one API that allows you to tap into this myriad of products, right? I mean, there's email, there's calendar, there's meeting, there's notes, and you don't need to learn as a dev 20 million ways to talk to each one of them. You have just like one API that you can get, for example, a meeting. From meeting, you can get attendees. From attendees, you can get managers. For each one, you can get file. For a file, you can get something else. And it's like you go from one server to another using the same API.
Yes.
That is brilliant. There is nothing you will see anywhere else.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. I think that's pretty much it for this one. So thank you, Tomomi, for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for a good discussion. It's always interesting to have a different perspective, and you come from a different world, so to say. So it's actually good to
USA.
hear.
What are you saying? She's in the USA. That's a different world.
But it's good to hear the different perspective, and I'm sure that the listeners or watchers agree on that one as well. And thank you, Waldek, once again. We'll be back with a new PnP Weekly in a week.
Month.
So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vesa. Bye.